The White Sox won yesterday. Let's discuss if you should be upset when they rarely do. Next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit that like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. You can also catch the show via audio on wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple and Spotify. Well, the White Sox rarely win these days, and it actually should be a cause for celebration when they do. Instead, some of the fan base see it as a threat to the all-time losing record, not forever hanging over owner Jerry Reinsdorf's neck. Let's discuss in the first segment why there's nothing wrong with wanting to avoid 121 defeats. Then, did the Sox front office actually find a player off the scrap heap that can help the club going forward? Let's discuss Jacob Amaya's recent strong play in the second segment. And finally, in today's Minor League Monday report, I want to focus on Daryl Van Schouwen's article on Oscar Colas and the front office thinks he still needs time to develop and why that's concerning. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com. All right, so I want to challenge you. If you're on the side of the 2024 Sox being the worst team ever and you want that to happen because you want that to hang forever around the franchise's neck, first of all, the reason why I want to challenge you is on Thursday's episode, I actually had a Mets fan come on and explain how that taint follows forever until the next team comes around. And it could be, almost 60 years before that happens. At least I hope to convince anyone on the 120 to 121 defeats or bust to enjoy the few rare victories along the way. Also gives me an opportunity to add more to the list of not reveling in the worst record ever because there's no value in that happening. Now, if you're an everydayer, you should know my two main reasons by now. But if you're new here, if you're new, you're just grabbing the show for the first time, you're kind of one of those guys that one of those fans that checks in and out with the Sox because you're just so disgusted with them. Here are my basic two reasons of why there's no value for the White Sox to break the 62 Mets record. Heck, there's no value for the White Sox to top the 1916 Philadelphia A's for the worst winning percentage. First, the owner has a very high capacity for embarrassment. If Jerry Reinsdorf actually was embarrassed by this horrible season, he would have authorized Chris Getz to fire Pedro Grifol back in April when it still could be salvaged. But business got in the way as Jerry reportedly did not want to pay Grifol 5 months to do nothing. Instead, he wants to only pay him 7 weeks to do nothing. Second, the new lottery rules prohibit the White Sox from getting a top 9 pick after the unexpected 100-loss season in 2023. That burned the Sox chance of getting a top 10 pick in next year's draft. So that means no Ethan Holiday to be the feature saver like, say, the Chicago Bears got from Caleb Williams or the Blackhawks got from Connor Bedard. And let me add a few more reasons. First, this is not going to spur Jerry Reinsdorf to go out and spend gobs of money on free agents like Juan Soto and Anthony Santander and Willy Adames to turn the team's fortunes around. It's not just because he's cheap, but you and I might be keeping our eyes off the ball. And then as the Sox revenue streams might not be enough next season to sign Jesse Winker in the offseason. Starting the Chicago Sports Network, it's a good idea for the Sox, Bulls, and Hawks to ensure their own RSN rather than to ensure that they own their own RSN rather than, say, trusting Diamond Sports or NBC, who has no interest in being in that business anymore. But we don't know what that's going to generate in terms of revenue. We don't know what type of television contracts they're going to get because, the station is set to drop, I believe, in October, and there still has been no deals announced. And now while teams like the Phoenix Suns, for example, have gone their own route by teaming up with a local partner and then streaming and eventually thinking, hey, this will eventually even itself out, they have a billionaire owner who's willing to eat those costs until it starts to become, a profitable business. Jerry Reinsdorf, he may be worth $1 billion, but that's all tied up in probably the Bulls value, real estate, and the White Sox. So he can't just be eating these costs. Plus, we don't know what the labor war is going to be like in 2026. It's predicted that this is going to get ugly in 2026, that the owners are going to want a lot of concessions from the players, and we know the players are not going to give those concessions back. We might not even have baseball in 2026. That's how apocalyptic it could be. So do you really think Jerry Reinsdorf is going to look at this team and be like, man, well, we lost 123 games. Here's a blank check, Chris Getz. And being terrible does not matter to Jerry as long as the bottom line is good. At least that's what I'm going to assume that lets him sleep at night. Losing 121 games or more probably will not have him waking up in this cold sweat every night, be like, oh my God, I own the historically worst team in baseball. I have a feeling he has enough ego to then go look at his 6 NBA championship rings and his 1 World Series ring and go, well, I got that. And this is also not going to get Chris Getz fired after 1 terrible season. Sure, Hawk Harrelson was fired after 1 bad season in 1985. That ironically pushed the events of decaying this franchise basically nearly 40 years later. He fired Tony La Russa. That created Jerry's regret, and it's been a dismal White Sox fan existence ever since. When Jerry saw the opportunity to correct his regret, and that could have just went away in the first place had Hawk Harrelson never fired Tony La Russa. Just saying. Being worse than the 1935 Boston Braves is not going to motivate Jerry to hire Kim Ng to be the president of operations or say bring in James Click. It's just it's not going to happen. The Sox are also not on a collision course with this losing record, using the few promising prospects the club has and say like guys like Brian Ramos and Kai Bush, Mason Adams, and the countless others that I've rattled off on previous shows. At least going down while using this time to get precious evaluations would make me say, okay, there's some value in losing 123 games because at least you're getting precious evaluation times, precious evaluations. You're able to get an idea of, okay, here's who can help me next year. Because again, I don't see Jerry giving Chris Getz enough money to make this team better than a 98 loss team. And that's the biggest issue from my perspective. The Sox cannot do losing correctly. They are doing it with bad veterans and 4A players. Where now tanking does not make sense for the White Sox, you should be using this time, as I keep saying over and over, and I don't care if I sound like a broken record, you should be using it to get these evaluations on players that might be able to help you in 2025, 2026, and 2027. So that's my new point, though. They're not doing it right. They're not even doing the losing correctly. They're doing it with just terrible players in a time period where you shouldn't even be tanking. Chris Flexen is still getting starts. And he did have a nice start yesterday. Bravo. But he went 21 games without a win. The team lost 21 of his starts until yesterday. Lenyn Sosa keeps getting starts. He's a 4A player. So that is why I take joy in the rare wins, because you and I can get a break from watching the bullpen blow leads like it did on Friday night. However, I'm okay with getting a data point on Matt Foster. He did give up the 2-run dinger in the 7th that led to that 3-1 defeat. But when they win, it gives me a break from having to see, oh my gosh, this offense cannot produce good enough baseball to win back-to-back games. I'm tired of watching Garrett Crochet going from being an all-star ace like he was up until the all-star break to basically an opener who's not a dominant lefty that he was in June because of an innings limit. That's why I enjoy the winning when it comes, because the Sox are not going to win back-to-back either. They haven't done that since June, and that's just sad. I think that's the other reason why I find no joy in this losing, because it's sad. It really is. It's a very sad thing to watch. Especially how, again, 2021 should not feel like 2 lifetimes ago. It should not feel like, man, did my great grandpa go through that? Like, it shouldn't feel that way. And why am I even bringing it up? I was on a meeting with basically our channel director here, and he was like, "Man, you should do a show." I'm like, "Hey, we should be mad that they're if they're losing." And I'm like, I'm on the opposite because why be mad? It's sad when they lose. It's sad that they are on this collision course. It's just incredibly sad that Fox on Saturday night's game in front of a national televised audience had a graphic comparing them to the Boston Braves and the Philadelphia A's. Two franchises that are now two separate cities removed from when they were that historically bad. I mean, it's just downright sad. Well, hey, let's get into a player that is showing some promise with the playing time he is getting. Did the front office find a diamond in the rough in Jacob Amaya? Hey, let's discuss that next on Lockdown White Sox. Hey, you've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, FanDuel has something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel on it anytime. And always be on the lookout for FanDuel's Profit Boost promotions. That means when they are offered on any pre-live straight money line wager, like what they had yesterday with the NFL Week 1's games, if that wager wins, your winnings will double. So keep a lookout for those Profit Boost promotions. And if you're done playing the White Sox and you want to play the Bears next week against the Texans, Chicago right now is at plus 6.5 points and plus 220 on the money line. Just visit fanduel.com, download America's #1 sports book. And thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it covered every single day on Locked On MLB. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox start a 3-game home series with the Cleveland Guardians tonight. The first pitch is at 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Lockdown White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Lockdown White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts, as Lockdown White Sox is available via audio on places such as Apple and Spotify. All right, I might have to admit I was wrong about Jacob Amaya. First, I was in the crowd of people who thought he might have been created by AI, or he was a beer vendor Chris Getz pulled out of the stands to play. Honestly, like Jacob Amaya, that guy looks like he was created by artificial intelligence. But he's actually a player, and he's taking advantage of his chances when he's getting the playing time. He could be just like Corey Julks was when he debuted with the White Sox, flash in the pan. But at least it's encouraging to see a player during this terrible season go out and make the most of an opportunity. He's gotten into 8 of the last 9 games, and he is 7 for 25 in them. He was part of that 5-run ninth inning rally yesterday that allowed the White Sox to salvage a game in a 3-game series with Boston. 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Not bad for a guy that AI, again, may or may not have created. But here's where I'm going to caution my heart. 34.8% K rate right now, and just 1 double. And I'm not seeing eventual starter. Maybe good enough to convince the front office to move on from Lenyn Sosa in the offseason and go with him as the utility player. And while it's nice to see Amaya do everything he can to make this more than just a cup of coffee that he had with the Marlins and the Astros, because again, he only has played 5 career games before coming to the White Sox, he still has a 77 WRC plus. It's not like he's exactly setting the world on fire. And I don't want to get fooled like I got fooled by Julks. So I'm going to caution myself. But at the same time, being someone who started covering baseball with a team that nearly lost 100 games 2 seasons in a row, and that was the 2003 Milwaukee Brewers, and then, because they lost 100 games in 2002, Amaya is the type of player bad teams take flyers on. He's exactly who they should be going out and grabbing off the scrap heap and seeing, can you help? Can you produce? And that's the type of guy that I like to see, not Nick Senzel, who's already failed twice, and was never going to live up to the hype, but at least seeing a guy like Amaya that you take a flyer on and then you actually play him. You keep him in the lineup so long as the pitching matchup says otherwise. And that's what's been nice to see lately. They've been playing him. Give him some playing time. Give him a runway. With Brooks Baldwin now hurt, why not have him play shortstop? And then how about this? Brian Ramos, you just recalled him. He only got a pinch run in. Why is that happening? He should be playing third. Miguel Vargas should be playing second. I know I sound like a broken record, but to go back to the first segment, and I know I sound like a broken record because because of other shows I've said, but it's just, if you're going to lose 121 games, lose it because you know that maybe the players that you got are just young and they don't know how to win. Not because you got 4A guys and bad veteran players. Gavin Sheets, great. You're leading the team in average. But you know what? You're not. You are who you are. You're a decent baseball player. Yes, you'll have a career probably. But you're not going to be the power-hitting left-handed bat off the bench. You're not even a great power-hitting DH. I'd rather see like Andrew Benintendi, him, and Andrew Vaughn just get in a rotation at DH. So then that way, give Zach DeLoach a runway. But get these guys in the lineup. And if they can hit, keep giving them the at-bats. I'm tired of seeing Lenyn Sosa, as I keep saying. It just, I feel like I keep having the same show because it's the same thing over and over again. We're probably going to talk tomorrow about how the White Sox can't win back-to-back games because the offense is going to go to sleep. The offense cannot sustain more than 24 hours of good baseball. The bullpen's probably going to blow a lead, just like they did on Friday. I mean, that was sad. It was Davis Martin threw a great game on Friday. They should have won, put them in a position to win. And what happens? The offense can only manage one run, and bullpen gives up the lead on a home run. It just feels like it's just deja vu all over again. That's why I go back to the last segment. Enjoy these rare wins. They're a nice little break from what we're going to probably see again today and what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I would love to talk about the White Sox actually winning at least back-to-back games. I mean, that's what's been sad. It's been June since the White Sox even won a series. It's been since June since the White Sox had a winning streak. It's just give these guys some runway, play these guys. I'd rather go down knowing that you got a proper evaluation for players that might be helping you in 2025. Get a head start on what you need to do for the offseason instead of saying, man, Lenyn Sosa's got to play. And again, sorry for playing the greatest hits, but it seems like the White Sox keep playing the greatest hits of losing games. And Daryl Van Schouwen's got a great article up on the Sun-Times, not the one that I want to discuss in the next segment, but one about how, executives are just saying like they keep finding new and inventive ways to lose. But if you're going to lose, I'd rather see it with a guy like Jacob Amaya, who's at least taking advantage of his playing time. Well, it is Monday, and that means another Minor League Monday report. And since last Friday's show was heavy on the prospects, I was going to skip it, and then Sun-Times had a piece on Oscar Colas that I had to react to. So let's discuss that next on Locked On White Sox. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And the White Sox start a 3-game home series with the Cleveland Guardians tonight. The first pitch is at 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. Again, I'm your host, Todd Welter. Hope you had a good weekend. Hey, if you watched the Bears game, that was an ugly one, but winning is winning. For those watching on YouTube, you're like, Todd, you wear glasses? Yes, normally I wear contacts, but this weekend for me was one of being uncomfortable, but getting some rest. I have shingles. I'm not going to tell you where, but yes, I have shingles. It's very painful. I would not wish this on my worst enemy, but I don't want to be touching my eyes because when I was 5 years old, I got chicken pox. Basically, our parents, I think, lied to us, or the medical information that everybody got back in the 80s and the 90s, and I'm sure even back further, were like, well, everybody's got to get chicken pox. And that way that you don't get it as an adult, because if you get chicken pox as an adult, it's terrible. You'll die. So I remember parents being like, oh, so Johnny's got chicken pox. You're going to go play with Johnny this weekend and you get chicken pox. So I got chicken pox when I was 5. And I remember I got a really bad case of pink eye too. So I'm like, I'm not touching my eyes. I'm not going to wear my contacts until, I get the all clear. So if you see me wearing my glasses, it's because not putting my contacts in right now. Anyways, Oscar Colas, and also just really quick again, the medical information we got is in the 80s and the 90s, and even back. I mean, it's amazing we're alive, but hey, we're here. Anyways, Oscar, and yes, this is the summer of sickness for me. I've had an ear infection, I've had COVID, and now I've got shingles. But hey, I'm here for you. I'm here to be the guy that challenges you, gives you information on your White Sox opinions. I have no problem having a discussion. Let's just keep it a discussion, not, hey, I got to prove you wrong. I got to prove you right. Like, again, if you disagree with my takes on not enjoying the historic losing, fine. Let's have a discussion about it. Tell me why you think it's great, and that's okay. I'm also, again, here for you if you're just checking in. You've already checked out on the White Sox, but you kind of like to look, see what's going on with your beloved, and you're hoping to come back once there's a new owner. This is what I'm here for. And I'm also helping you to get you through this terrible, gosh awful, no good season. Well, Oscar Colas looked like he was out of favor after Zach DeLoach was the hitter selected when rosters expanded in September. But assistant GM Josh Barfield spoke with Sun-Times beat reporter Daryl Van Schouwen about Colas, and, well, he's still viewed favorably by the front office. But his comments were one of an incrimination of the previous front office group that include the current GM, who is supposed to be in charge of Colas's development. Here's an excerpt I want to share. All right, so quote, he has made some strides, and I know he hasn't had a sustained run up here with the way everything is shaken out, but he's still somebody we think a lot of, Barfield said. There is still some development that needs to go on, end quote. The Sox acknowledged that Colas was rushed to the big leagues, and he was sent back to Charlotte last season after fighting strike zone and outfield issues. Some improvements were made, but the Sox want to see more. They need to see a lot more from players who should be developing in their farm system. Colas, who turns 26 this month, was 9 for 33, 273, with no extra base hits and 4 walks in 13 games in June. In 96 games at Charlotte, he's batting 243/333/393 with 9 homers. Quote, you'll see it in spurts, the ability to attack the baseball. The second time he came up, he had a nice stretch of at-bats, Barfield said, but he needs to continue to refine the approach. When he's swinging at the right pitches, he's a talented player who can help us in the long term. Just looking for that consistency, end quote. The development has been, quote, a little slower than you'd like, but he has the physical tools to be at least an average or above average outfielder, end quote, Barfield said. Now, I don't mind Barfield's assessment because he was a very successful director of player development with the Arizona Diamondbacks. But if Colas was rushed to the big leagues, who was overseeing the farm system when he was rushed? It's General Manager Chris Getz, who was the director of player development before he got that promotion that he may or may not have weaseled his way into by whispering sweet nothings to owner Jerry Reinsdorf. And Colas is going to be, Colas is basically 26. And if the development is still slow, that is very, very concerning. I mean, you're 26. You should be at the big leagues by now. You should be entering your prime. Now, granted, his slow development, that might sometimes be the player. And now that's not on Getz. That's on the former head of international scouting, who's now out the door, who identified Colas. And if Colas still can't fully develop, can't develop his game at an appropriate pace, that also can sometimes be on the player. So I'm not going to throw that totally on Getz, but it's like, wait a minute, he's 26 years old and you're still viewing that he still has ways to go. That is terrifying. That shows you how Chris Getz really, his plans did not help develop players. And what Colas has done better since that disaster last season, and 2023 was a disaster for him, he showed much better plate discipline and the ability to get on base. But what he hasn't shown at the big league level is he really still has not driven the ball. And you kind of need that from your right fielder. But to me, if it's taking this long for him to develop, you got Dominic Fletcher, who's about the same age, who can make impressive catches in the field. And along with Zach DeLoach, who could be, we don't know. Maybe he could be the fourth outfielder. We got to give him some playing time. It might just be better to move on from Colas. I mean, what is being described as someone you should be talking about who, still is like 23 or 24 in your system? Where there might be still some time to turn things around and take advantage of those prime performance years. And those prime performance years are always ages 25 to 29. But Colas is 26 who hits singles. And it's nice to have someone in the system who can get on base, but he's basically an over-the-hill prospect. He's the type of prospect that contenders throw into trades to teams like the White Sox who think, I can solve him. He was once highly regarded, ignoring that, again, he's 26 years old. And that to me is like, when you hear those comments, again, you're just like, first, if you're Josh Barfield and you walked into this organization and you're like, I'm looking for this guy who, look at these guys that they can't develop. And I came from the Diamondbacks who developed some very good players. Man, we got to overhaul things. And one of the overhauling things is that they have done, at least this administration is they've kind of gotten rid of a lot of those failed international prospects. And I think it's time to get rid of Oscar Colas. I mean, if you're still hesitant to bring him up at this point, when he at least showed the ability to get on base, that he showed that he at least can make some changes at the plate. And yes, he does need to drive the ball. I get that. But it's a lost year and he showed at least some progress, and you're not willing to give him another crack in 10 loss season already. Just move on. Let him reclaim his career someplace else. Trade him for another team's other frustrating prospects. See if you can fix that guy. I doubt it, but if anything too, just let him go. You're not using him. Anyway, it's not like you're going to lose him for nothing because he is technically nothing. He's at AAA. But this franchise, though, I will say this, and this is what's frustrating, and I think a lot of fans should be frustrated. They played a role in stunting his growth, and it happened on ding, 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 Chris Getz's watch. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listens today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'll be back tomorrow to discuss if the Sox being a thorn in the Guardians will ruin their shot at winning the AL Central. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding, hey, there's nothing wrong with enjoying those few rare Sox wins. Jacob Amaya actually being a real baseball player and taking advantage of his playing opportunities. And Oscar Colas still being viewed favorably by the organization. But come on, he's 26. At this point, he should be either with you or just move on. Feel free to leave, and you can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.